It's spectacular. I'm speechless. It's almost like I'm staring into the blank void, the nothingness of human existence.
I can almost see what the artist is trying to tell me. The beautiful, beautiful piece of art that it is.
White supremacy.
I have to have it. 1 million.
1.2 million?
I object. 1.5. I'll take it in that.
No.
Hey guys, you haven't put up the painting yet? It's like kept right there.
Colors.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Spill the Tea with CC, where we get insider insights from students who've walked the talk. In this very exciting episode, we will learn all about Parsons School of Design at the New School, a private art and design college located right in the heart of Greenwich Village, New York, New York. If you're thinking about applying to any design school, you might be wondering whether Parsons would be the right fit for you. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit subscribe to watch us spill the tea on all the top colleges around the world. I am beyond excited to introduce our special guest for the episode, Manasvini. Welcome, Manasvini. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Manasvini. I'm the art and design mentor at Athena, and I did my undergraduate from Parsons School of Design, where I studied illustration design.
So I want to start by opening it up to design school in general. What type of student should consider going to design school, and how is it different from applying for an arts degree at another more traditional university?
So I think the decision of wanting to go to design school, one has to be really sure that they love design, right? Because when you're in school, when you're in high school, you are competing among students who have had a little bit of exposure to design in your fine arts class, in your art class in school, and you're basically competing with just like 7 to 8 kids who are good at design, right? But when you go into design school, you are amongst the world's best. So obviously the competition goes up, your creativity gets enhanced, you are forced to do better than the other. I remember when I went into my first class at Parsons, I was very confident, because I knew I was good at making faces and I was good at with my paints and everything. And when I went inside, every person sitting next to me had their own thing, had their own quality, had their own best subject that they were making. And I was like in awe. I was like, is this actually the place for me? Because everyone's that good. Also, I would say in art school, the faculty that you're learning from, right? They're all from the industry. They are working professionals. I took my class in branding and marketing from this professor who actually made the MTV logo. I was studying illustration and comic design from Victor, who is my professor who actually worked for Marvel Comics. So the kind of faculty that comes in and the kind of interactions that you have at a design school are so well curated to give you that experience of the industry that it's definitely different from and more worth it from a normal school.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that there's so much emphasis on exploration, right? And I want to talk about Parsons in particular, which is one of the 5 colleges at the New School.
Yeah.
Correct? Talk a little bit about Parsons' academic approach and how they facilitate academic immersion and exploration among the different topics in design.
So I feel like when I was applying to school, right, and as artists, in high school, we don't get that much of exposure. We have, one art class, we have a crafts class till about like 8th grade, and after that it's, especially for me when I took IB, visual arts was the only exposure I had to the art world. For a lot of students who are doing other boards, art is not a subject that you would carry on till the 12th. So I was confused. I wasn't sure what kind of art I wanted to do, right? When you go into university, you're looking art divided into product design, fashion design, textiles, architecture, and not having exposure to any of these things makes it a little tough deciding on what major you want to do. What is beautiful about schools like Parsons, I think they're one of the few schools that offer this, is they offer you a foundation year, right? So irrespective of whatever major that you have chosen, you get to experience every class. So a fashion design student will also take a product design class. They will also take a textile class. They will also take an animation class. I was a fashion design major when I went in there. And eventually when I took all those classes, I realized that, hey, maybe fashion design is not what I wanted to do. And I ended up sketching more. I ended up doing ink work more. I fell in love with new mediums that were introduced to me. And I eventually ended up taking illustration design as my major. So I think that's a very important factor in schools that offer you that foundation year, because you don't want to go into school and then 3 years later decide, hey, I'm doing the wrong thing.
Right. Very interesting. So it's my understanding that every Parsons student has the same curriculum once they come in to get everyone's baseline knowledge and exposure level up to the same plane.
Yeah.
And then students can go on and specialize even as late as the end of their second year and choose their major.
So before you declare your major, before the second year, you also have a lot of support from the faculty. So you have a mentor who will probably like sit with you and say, hey, you're good at this, or you've scored well in these classes, and maybe this will help you do better, or maybe this major will be better for you, and they sit and sort out your credits for you. So it's a very supportive environment.
We talk a lot about college vibe. What type of student attends Parsons and really thrives there? How would you describe the typical Parsons grad?
I would like to address the misconception that art school is easy. Right, there are a lot of people who come to me and say, "Oh, but you went to art school. You haven't faced pressure. You don't know what staying up late nights is," and that's not true. Right, a school like Parsons, where everyone is so immersed in what they're doing, is so passionate about what they're there for. I mean, you'll see a Parsons student staying up in the studio till like 4 a.m. with their sleeping bags next to them, eating, laying down, taking rest, and working on their models at the same time. So you are working with a bunch of people who are busy 24/7. Because everyone wants to make the best piece of work, right? And before, it's a crowd that'll talk about extra credit before even talking about, when the deadline is. Because everyone wants to finish before, everyone wants to do better than the other. And I would say that if you are someone who does not like to work hard, if you are someone that wants to go to a party school, Parsons is not the place. Mm-hmm. It's definitely very rigorous. The crowd is very hardworking and they're very, very talented. So to stand out means a lot of effort.
Wow. Yeah, the sense that I got from you is that everyone is creating all the time. Mm-hmm. When you walk anywhere around that campus or that area, like there's just this artistic energy in the air. And what I've understood is that I've heard Parsons' dropout rate is extremely high compared to other top colleges, Ivy League colleges even. What was the dropout rate when you were there?
My time it was 64%.
So 64% of the students drop out because of the rigor and demands of the curriculum. So that is really worth noting for students who are considering to apply. But I don't think that's something to be scared of. I think that just means that you have to go in with the mindset of working really hard, right?
Yeah, I guess, if you love what you're doing, if you love illustration, like I know when I'm having a bad day, I can sit for like 6 to 7 hours and just sketch, which also takes me back to class time. We used to have these 6-hour painting classes. And even today, when people hear about that, they're like, oh my God, you have 6-hour-long classes. And in fact, those are the classes we used to wait to attend, right? To sit and just paint and work on your thesis for 6 hours, work on your pieces for as long as you can, repeatedly. So I guess that's the kind of attention, that's the kind of you need to worship what you're doing, right? So if you love it that much, you won't even get to know how much time you're spending on it.
Wow, so interesting. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about the campus or lack thereof. What was the experience of studying right amid the skyscrapers of New York City?
So, I mean, now that I look back at it, I'm glad I made the decision, because I remember we were having this conversation when I was choosing which college to go to. And the biggest hurdle was, do you want to go to a college with a college campus, or do you want to go to one without? And I think my dad brought this up, saying that, the city is going to teach you much more than a college is going to teach you. And I feel that was so important for me. New York in itself is such an amazing city to be in. There's creativity like in every corner, right? So not only at Parsons where you're learning from the best, but I remember we used to have a week where every day we had classes at the Met. So when we're studying about Van Gogh, or we're studying about Dadaism, and we're studying about Dali, instead of pulling up a picture on the projector, we're actually at the Met, we're actually at the MoMA, standing in front of the real piece and talking about it. So that kind of experience when you're in the same room as the piece that you're talking about, when you are when you're studying about 1980s street art movement, were actually going to the places, because the Lower East Side of New York was actually where street art was born, and that's actually where Greenwich Village is. So to actually be able to walk down to that alley and see that artwork, so there's something called an open museum in the city. So where this artwork has been done, they've actually gone and put small notes or a pedestal there where you can read about the work at the place where the work has been for all these years. So I think the city itself teaches you so much about the culture, so much about the history, that it's an experience you can't imagine to compare.
That's wonderful. So it's almost as though, the city acts as the backdrop for your education. And,
absolutely.
Enriched your understanding of those pieces.
Absolutely. And also New York being a city where you have people coming in from all over the world, picking up important themes, right, about gender or feminism or, its influence on art throughout history. You're not only learning about it from your perspective, but you also get to hear from the perspective of many others. So you get a more holistic understanding of what the entire theme's about. For me, knitting was a memory that I would, bring back to my grandmother sitting in, my house in Delhi and talking to me. For someone else in Jamaica, it was totally different, right? Knitting for her came with the memory of, making clothes during her cousin's marriage. So putting those experiences together and, joining and, connecting together at that frequency was beautiful.
Yeah. So a kind of tapestry almost, or mosaic of diverse reference points, diverse perspective that may add up to a really holistic understanding of the same topic.
Yep.
That's so important. I think especially in a field like art and design, right? So tell me, what is Parsons Gala?
Parsons Gala, the most exciting part of the year. So when you reach your third or fourth year, everyone's working on their thesis pieces, right? So every student has a chance to put up their work, and there is a specific theme that you have, and you're supposed to, adhere to the norms, and you're supposed to make pieces, and the best pieces are chosen from each submission, from each department, I would say. Some pieces are very controversial, some pieces are very strong, but they're all put together on the gallery on Fifth Avenue. So it's not only the guests who are called at the new school, that also sometimes include alumni such as Michael Kors, who actually came down to our gala, which is really cool because he's a big shot, and we actually had the opportunity of attending a lecture by him.
And I've heard that Parsons also has a really big emphasis on sustainability and climate justice through the art that you do, right? So is that something that you observed in your experience?
Absolutely. Sustainability is very centric to Parsons. So even when we were making dresses for fashion, we were pushed to not go to the fashion district and buy new fabric. We were told to go to, the scrap bins and pick up whatever we had and make, art out of that. I remember my first project where we had to make a jacket, like a denim jacket, not of denim, but out of all the plastics that we could find. So we had people putting together bubble wraps and, running the machine over it to create new fabric. So it obviously, opens your eyes to how creative you can be with what you have available.
Awesome. So now I think we've learned about all the wonderful, interesting, creative aspects of Parsons. If a student watching this decides that, wow, this seems like a great place for me, what advice would you give them about how to get in and how to really emphasize their fit here?
So I guess a lot of people apply to Parsons, right? And what's going to make you stand out is how well you tell your story. So just a small experience I had, I was in a class and my professor said, I don't want to see your final pieces of work, right? I want to see what you have sketched in the margins of your maths notebook. So Parsons is more interested to see the mistakes that you make and how you choose to improve those mistakes. They don't want to see final pieces. I mean, you can include some of them in your portfolio, but what they want to see is a process, right? How you started from one idea, connected it with another, showcased it in one way, took it to another medium, and how basically you progressed to this big piece of art. So they concentrate on more of what your journey has been with the material and what theme that you've explored rather than just the final piece that you've made. So I would say record everything that you've done from the 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, put it together, tell a story, and submit as much work as you can and as diverse as you can get. So if you are a photographer, definitely include your photographs. At the same time, do put in some sketches, even if you're not good at it, right? So they just want to see that here's a student who is really in love with the creative process, and they're very inquisitive. They want to try new things. They love people who love, experiments.
Yeah, obviously Parsons is an extremely competitive university, one of the top or the top design schools in the country. And what I've observed is that the students who are successful are evaluated not on the basis of their technical knowledge of, the different softwares, design softwares they can use, or not on their, technique or how precise their lines are, but rather how they can push the envelope, think outside of the box, break boundaries in anything that they do. So you're really evaluated and assessed on your ability to think. And you want to showcase that as much as possible through your application and especially through your portfolio.
Yeah, I think that's very important to understand that one cannot learn art, right? There is no right or wrong in art. What you learn is how to think differently. You learn design thinking, right? You learn how you're going to use design to solve world problems with design solutions. How you're going to use design to communicate with an audience whose language you don't share. How are you going to communicate with an audience whose emotions you cannot even, bear to imagine. So that's what we learn, and that's what's important.
Right. And as we draw to a close, I want to ask you one question that you've asked me many times and you ask practically all your students. What is the difference between art and design?
So if you take art and you combine it with engineering, right, it becomes industrial design. It becomes product design. If you put art with a creativity with the process of making clothes, becomes fashion design. So you use art to solve problems, and that design solution becomes, when art is used to solve a problem, it becomes design. That's for me.
Right. So art with a function. With a
function, yes.
Is design. Purpose. Awesome. Yes, I will never forget that. And that draws us to a close for yet another wonderful episode of Spill the Tea with CC. Before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a comment below whether design school sounds interesting to you or not, and don't forget to like and hit the bell notification so you can get reminded every time we release an episode. And as always, one last piece of advice from our lovely guest.
I think Indian students are very scared to reach out to the university, right? Because
a
lot of students are asking me, is my portfolio good enough? And I'm like, write to the university. Dig out a professor's name, figure him out on LinkedIn, send him an email, send an email to the admissions department, reach out. They love when you reach out, but we don't reach out. So the more you reach out, the more you send your stuff out, the more feedback you'll get. And, it's the better you can make your portfolio. So I think that's very important.